Um, I guess this isn't really a question so much as I was wondering if you could kind of talk to us about how you use social media since you live halfway across the world,
Hmm.
and how you use that to your advantage, and how maybe we could do the same even here in LA.
Yeah. That's a great question. What's your name, by the way?
Ben,
Ben. Okay, awesome. Um, yeah, social media and I have a real adversarial relationship, to be honest. I hate the garbage of social media, which I'm sure all of you do as well. I don't appreciate everyone's opinion. Uh, I'm a pretty outspoken person. I'm a very opinionated guy, and I hate the noise of social media. You know, I don't believe that the democratization of the internet is necessarily a great thing. And let me explain what I mean by that. I think um, the internet has sold us this false meme that um, because the playing field has been leveled by technology, that we all have the same opportunities and we all have the same um, you know possibilities, and that part is true. What's not true is that we're all going to be successful at it. And unfortunately, in our culture, in our online, always on society, that is the prevailing attitude, especially amongst creatives, that just because you have the open opportunity, the open landscape, just because the governors and the um, the gatekeepers are gone for the most part, that the barrier to success has been lowered and or thinned out, and it's easier to make it as a professional musician. Couldn't be further from the truth. The barrier to access, the barrier to entry is low, but the barrier to success has never been bigger because you're competing now with millions and millions of people, whereas before you were only competing with 13 or 14 great artists, right? So where social media plays in for me with all that is it gives you the ability to really broadcast what you're doing and uh, let people know and be aware of what you have going on, right? But there's a detriment to that too. There's a dark side to that too, in that you've all probably got people in your lives who just you never hear anything real from them. It's just always buy my shit, buy my here's what I have, here's my CD's out today, or I got this track placed on this ad campaign or whatever. Or, hey, I've got a new track on SoundCloud or whatever, and it's just this constant barrage of like me, I. That's the part of social media that I can't stand. And I think the way to best use social media as a musician today is as a value additive, not as a broadcaster. Um, Figure out a way to add value to your community. Figure out a way to be somebody who people look to for either help or excuse me, advice, or document your journey. Document your path in some way and show it to people. You know, um, as people who are, I presume most of you are just now getting started. I'm sure some of you probably have been at it for a while, but I would assume that the majority of you are just now, starting out, or at least in your first 5 years, I would say, of getting started. That time frame in an artist's life is very, very interesting to people. Start a vlog, start a blog, start an audio diary. Start putting your thoughts down on SoundCloud, just freeform, um, just stream of consciousness. Um, because those kinds of experiences and where you're at and how you're dealing and how you're navigating and the choices that you're making, the things that you're doing now to position yourself for future possibilities are super interesting to people. And if you want to get people's attention, even directors and producers and people who sign checks, which is the best attention to get, right? Um, Document your process. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and show your cards a little bit. Just because you don't have all your crap together, so to speak, doesn't mean that you shouldn't be out in public being part of the community and showing people what you're doing. So to answer your question, Ben, and be really super specific, I think social media, and I'll get practical in a second, I promise, but social media is best used, in my opinion, as a content additive and a way for you to add content and add value to the community, valuable content to the community that points back to you as a source of inspiration or a source of value for people. And that's going to mean different things to different people. And I'll give you an example. When I was first starting out as a film composer, I moved to Los Angeles. That permanent move to Los Angeles happened the week after 9/11, 2001. And it took me a couple of years to really figure out what the hell was going on in that town. I'd never really lived there before as a resident. Everybody at that time was real transient. There weren't a lot of people who were actually living in LA. We were all from somewhere, but nobody was really there, And so as a consequence of that, the community was very fractured. I didn't know Brian. Brian was there. We got there relatively the same time, but we didn't know each other. And I would see him from time to time at events and stuff. And who's that tall, freaky looking dude? In the leather jacket. But I didn't know who he was. Didn't know where he was from. Didn't know him. Just knew him as the blonde, tall dude. And that was the way everybody was to me. I couldn't put a face with a name. Everybody was just very transient. And so I thought, well, if this town is so slippery in terms of social, and I can't really, you do the LA thing. Hey, let's get together. Oh, sure. Yeah. Let's have coffee, man. And then 3 weeks go by and nobody's done shit. Right. So, it's just the way it is there. So I thought, well, instead of trying to go out and find the community, I'm going to do something that brings the community to me, where I can sit at home and everybody comes to me and I don't have to really do anything. So I started Scorecast. I started as a podcast where I was just talking about my struggle as somebody who didn't know what the hell they were doing in film music. And after about 6 or 7 months, I got a phone call from NYU, and they said, hey, we all listen to your podcast, and we want to know if it's okay if we add it to our recommended resources for our incoming freshmen. I was like, oh, crap. I got to get serious now, because at that point, it was just me just being a bozo, And so I thought, well, I better really make a show and start talking about serious crap, right? And so I did, and we were one of the very first podcasts to be put on iTunes when iTunes started their podcasting stuff, and then about 3.5 or 4 years later, I finally met Brian, and Brian started co-hosting the show with me, and it really took off. Because Brian knew even more of what he was talking about than I did, and it just kind of happened that way. So basically, we created this community that now has over 100,000 composers in it, over 30 countries. We've got chapters in 8 different countries now. We're launching 4 more this year, where composers all over the world get together and meet up and have have a meal together and sit down and hang out. I just got back from Australia. We're launching a chapter down there in a couple of months, and I had dinner with a bunch of composers in Melbourne. It was awesome. And so, I used social media to basically create that community and bring, fill the need that I had to find people to learn from, by adding value instead of, hey, look what I'm doing, which is nothing because I didn't know anything. Making up shit to put on the internet, hey, this is cool, man. I just got a phone call. I might have a gig, you do anything that you can possibly do, right? But I created that community and created a way to add value to people, which in turn, selfishly, brought value to myself. So if you can figure out a way to use Twitter, Snapchat, Periscope, Facebook Live, is big right now. Video is really important. I've got a daily vlog. You can go on my YouTube channel. You can see how I do my life, how I do my creative stuff. I'm flying all over the world doing stuff, and I document it all on my vlog. And that's brought me work. I mean, that's been really instrumental for me. Just in the last couple of months, I started doing that at the beginning of summer. So, figure out a way to add value to people through social media instead of just constantly asking for things. Like this, like my page, subscribe to this, be my friend, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's being asked and asked and asked and asked and asked and asked and asked. Everybody's going for the knockout punch. Be somebody who kind of dances a little bit first, and adds value in whatever way that you possibly can. I think that's the best way to use social.